Hello, and welcome to episode 30 of Trails in the Pod. I'm Colin. That's Kevin.
It's so weird. Estelle and Co call him Josh, but like the society calls him Joshua. It's such a weird and stupid design choice. And let me tell you what, boy, that is the OVA in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think stupid design choice is a perfect summary of the shit show that we watched together. Oh my god.
So let's give some big picture stuff about the OVA. Well, Colin, the OVA, the first Trails anime adaptation, did not adapt FC, the
No,
first,
not at
in the
all.
series like you'd think it would. It adapted the second. It took inspiration from the second. I don't want to say adapted. That
I,
implies coherence.
I would call it an adaptation. It's just a really poor one. But yeah, it starts like right at the at the beginning of SC with the kissing scene between well, I guess it's really at the tail end of FC with the kissing scene between Joshua and Estelle, and then it moves into SC. But Kevin, before we move into this, let's talk release dates for the OVA and for the video games, at least in the West.
Yes, so when did FC come out in the West?
I came out some like in 2014, I think. SE in 2015, something like this.
When did the OVA anime come out in English?
See, before looking this up, I assumed it came out, I don't know, 2015, 2016. No, Kevin, it came out in 2012.
So this OVA then was some people's first experience to the Kaseki series.
For 2 years, this was the only thing of the Trails universe. We had some other Legend of Heroes stuff, but this was the only Trails media that we had in the West. Also, let's keep in mind that, okay, FC did exist for a time before SC, right? SC ran into problems with localization. It took a little bit for it to come out, which meant that fans were, you know, they didn't quite know how things were going to go. They wanted to know the end of the saga. The only way that they could see the end of the saga was by watching this crap show of an anime.
Let's give the bullet points of what happened to let you know how insane it is. They did all of this in 120 minutes. So Joshua leaves Estelle. Before that, we get a weird voiceover about the orbital revolution that doesn't really have much informative detail. It just confuses. Then we cut to the Janus Academy with Blue Blanc and Chloe, who they called Klose. There's a mech there. What's it doing? Who the fuck knows? We don't know.
It does
Blue Blanc,
destroy the school, by the way, which does not happen
yes,
in the game at all.
has a weird cryptic conversation with Chloe. Is like,
Klose.
you're
Her name
actually the princess.
her name is Klose, Kevin.
Yes, with Klose. And like, you're the princess. And the audience is like, okay, we've met you 30 seconds ago. Okay. Okay. So then we go from Generous Academy, Airship to Zeiss, where we meet Tita for the first time and Ren. The sum total of Estelle's interactions with Ren before the big reveal is they get ice cream together for like 5 minutes. That's it. Then we have the problems of Zeiss of the earthquakes. We have an unnecessarily weird hot springs scene with the girls and then Olivia and Agate. Then we fight Walter and the Abyss Worms. Estelle is incompetent. Joshua comes in, is all broody, leaves, like, don't follow me, which is good. I like that.
Yeah,
Ren comes in, reveals her true colors, rescues Walter. Like, so much happened in the first episode.
yeah.
It's insane. Joshua and the Capitalist Guy bandits, they infiltrate the Lake Valeria base. We see Campanella. Then we go to Roland with Luciola. We get the Estelle dream sequence, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah. One of the best parts of
Then
this
Estelle
anime.
gets kidnapped. Love slash Low explains Hamill to Estelle. Joshua comes. There's a
Kevin,
big fight.
Kevin, he doesn't explain Hamel. He explains Harmel.
Then Lova comes. Joshua comes. They fight. Estelle has a weirdly touching conversation with Ren that's meant to be heartwarming. It's only melodramatic because, again, we spent like 2 minutes with her. Then the Glorious is all about to explode. It's damaged while Joshua and Estelle jump off and get rescued by the capitalist sky bandits. And if this sounds like a frenetic series of almost unrelated bullet points more than an actual plot and story, that's because it is.
100%. And I think even worse than that. So, like, okay, it's clear to me that understanding how this OVA unfolds requires you to have played the games, right? It just, there's too much context that it does not provide. You need to have this context to enjoy it. And yet it does stuff that show that it's not really a good adaptation. Like, even setting aside the creative decision to not have Zin in there and to have Joshua save Estelle instead, we agree that this could actually be a good thing. Kevin? Where's Kevin? Where's Weissman? Where's the Libra arc? Where's, like, the whole last part of the game?
You know, they're hanging somewhere, having a good time. And it's not like it was two of a part three adaptation that was then cut. No, Colin, we get something approaching an ending and
Yeah.
resolution.
No, this is clearly designed to end this way. I was flabbergasted. And like we were like watching it, right? And we get to the part where we're in the Glorious and the fight scene happens between Josh and Lo. Not Joshua and Luva, Josh and Lo. And then I look over at the time and I'm like, Kevin, we have 15 minutes left. What the fuck?
So let's tackle this in a bit of a systematic manner.
Yeah.
First off, the protagonist, or the person who should be the protagonist but is not in the OVA, Estelle. How is Estelle presented in the anime?
This is a really crappy adaptation of Estelle. What they're trying to do is to display the traits that make us love Estelle in the first place, right? She's a flawed character. She has moments of, I'm not going to say idiocy, but, you know, she's not like the purely rational headed person that you might expect to see in a JRPG. But that's the only thing that she has. She's not competent. She's hard headed. She's whiny. She's always being rescued. She has practically no agency, and whenever she does, it's in the wrong direction. This is not the Estelle that I know and love.
You portray her, when they give her a Valley Cali girl accent, and they portray her like a stereotype of that. She's like a ditz.
Yeah, she's a ditz. Like they took all of Josette's criticisms of Estelle in the games and made that into a character.
I've said a number of times, these two games, it's about Joshua and Estelle's relationships, about them alone, about them together. If you butcher one of the central foundations, one of the pillars underlying, supporting, you're going to get crap.
Speaking of crap
So
characterization, let's talk about Scheherazade.
Estelle is clearly not the leader, morally, physically, intellectually, whatever. Who is? It's Schehera, but it looks like Schehera. It has the whip, but it's not Schehera.
No, I mean they okay. A couple of things about Shara. Number one, throughout the entire OVA, they switch between four different names, which is Shara, Sherazard, Schehera, and Scheherazade. So okay, uh, she is a combination of the like rational, cool-headed, stern team leader that like is only all business all of the time. So we never see any of like her flirtatious behavior, any of her drinking, her comedy, her teasing, nothing that makes Shara endearing in the games. That's completely absent from this. But also what she is a vehicle for fan service. Not as much as Estelle, which like surprised me, but we do get quite a bit of boob shot. We do get quite a bit of butt shot. But of course, this is also not tied with any of the personality traits that would make Shara an enjoyable fan service character. So it's just all over the place what they're trying to do with this character.
Well, I'm going to push back on enjoyable fan service. I mean, this is an area where we differ. I just don't like it at all. I don't, in general, enjoyable fan service to me is or should be an oxymoron. But It's this flattening of the characters. They are one dimensional. Schehera is one dimensional. Olivier is one dimensional. He's pure comic relief. It's this
And not even good
facade,
comic relief either.
no, taken up to 11.
Yeah,
And Colin, I'm sorry, I said all the characters are one dimensional. That's a mistake.
yeah. Some of them have no dimensions.
Chloe.
Close. You asked me a
She
question.
has 30 seconds of lines, if that.
Yeah, if that. I mean, I remember you asked me the other day, why is she in this episode? And the reason why I think she's there is because if she wasn't there, Blue Blanc would have even less of a reason to exist. And unlike with Ren and Walter and even Luciola, Blue Blanc never pops up again. He's just there for that fight and he's done. Like, why did that even exist? It's never really explained, other than he's a legion. That's another something that we need to bring up is that they're not called enforcers of the society in this. They're called legion. Not even like a legion or legionaries. They're just called I'm legion number whatever.
We want to make something clear. Translation is an inexact business. This was before the games, so there wasn't an established localization of it is the society and Uruburos. They are enforcers and whatever. So we're not quibbling about they didn't use translations that in all likelihood had not yet even been decided. Just they used bad translations.
Like, I don't know Japanese, Kevin. We know a number of languages amongst ourselves. I can't imagine a scenario in which the word enforcer and the word legion is the same word.
We could imagine agent
Yeah,
or a whole host of synonyms that, even if it's not the ones that we have come to know for so long, it's okay. It's whatever.
like, okay, a legion is a collective noun, right? It refers to,
Yes.
in the singular grammatical sense, it's a singular noun, but it refers to a plurality of people. Uh, you can say that a legion enforces the laws, sure. So you could even say that all of the enforcers together could be a legion, but you can't call a single person a legion. That just, unless you're making a biblical reference, it doesn't make any sense.
Call us Legion, for we are many, but they don't give any hint about that.
No.
And it's not the society, it's the organization. And here, I think the slight but very meaningful difference exists. What is the relationship among the members of a society, Colin, versus an organization?
That's a good point. In society, it's kind of ambiguous, right? There are very weak ties between individuals unless strengthened by other means, like friendship or comradeship. Whereas in an organization, it's hierarchical most of the time, but you're also united by a common purpose.
Oh, I was going to say the exact opposite. To me, a society, the members have more ties that bind than an organization. They're more equal in a society. They're there, I would presume, because they want to be there.
I mean, I agree on the equality thing, and even perhaps on the want to be there thing, which is something that is stressed about enforcers. But I think organization implies that there's a hierarchy, which, like, there is in Ouroboros, right? Enforcers are
Yeah.
junior to Anguis. Of course, they can also disobey Anguis, so it's ambiguous there too. But you would never know it watching this OVA because there's no mention made of the Anguis. It's only these Legion people.
Luva is the presumed head,
Yes,
but
he has the most authority,
it's
and
just
he's
incomprehensible.
and he's the final boss technically. Let's talk about a good thing for a minute though, because okay, so the fight scene is pretty dumb, but what it does do is like show these characters in action, and something that I did think that was really cool about it was seeing like Schehera whip out her ornament and do stuff with it, and then it creates an effect. It like kind of visualizes for us how orbits are supposed to work. That hadn't really been made clear to me before, so I thought that was a pretty neat touch.
That was good. Also good, the sound design in general
Oh
did a
God,
very good
yes.
job.
Yeah, the music choices, how it's integrated into the scenes, that was consistently a fantastic bit of this OVA. It gets full marks on that, without a doubt.
A couple of times we had diegetic sound of Olivier playing the lute. That was the soundtrack accompanying the scene. So that was
Yeah,
quite well done.
that was really well done. I like that a lot. Let's talk about something that we didn't like a lot, which was the hot tub scene.
Oh my God. Okay. One part I thought was fun. Olivier getting way too close to Agate, because that's something I could totally see happening.
Well, especially since right before that, what you start off with is basically a crotch shot with his dick right below the water so you can't see it. But we have learned that Olivier waxes for sure. He is hairless down there. He is as hairless as a baby. And then you just go up to see Olivier standing there stretching and then wanted to get all close to Agate.
That what he says brings the tone down and it stays down for the entire scene. He says to Agate, "You're in love," with the clear, Colin, clear implication he is in love with Tita.
Yes.
What the fuck?
And that's another departure from the games. Now you could see that something might develop between Tita and Agate over like the course of years, perhaps. But in FC and SC, you see that Tita like has a crush on Agate, but Agate only sees her as a sister, and that is pretty well established. And
She's
not a
12. She
and
is
not a
canonically 12.
yes, and not a Trails kind of sister, by the way, like an actual sister.
You should clarify because the only other sibling bond that we have, well,
Well, yeah, they really like each other, Joshua and Estelle does. But that's not even like the weirdest
Josh
part.
and Estelle.
That's not the weirdest part of the hot tub scene. The other part is when
No.
we transition to seeing the girls. And this is where I thought that, okay, if we're going to see fan service, what we're going to see is a lot of naked shots of Schehera. And we don't really. She's like the I'm too mature for this kind of crap character, just like leaning back and telling Estelle to calm down. What we see is Estelle and Tita basically wrestling in the hot tub. Estelle even getting on top, like out of the pool, completely naked, being splashed with water.
The scene should not have been in there.
I mean, I don't mind. Like, we disagree on fan service. I think there can be an enjoyable level to it. I think it could have been a guilty pleasure if everything else around it was better off. But also, this scene would have needed to have been changed. And giving me a bad shot of Estelle is not what I'm looking for.
We disagree. We've said why. Let's move on to some other good stuff of the OV. Oh, wait, my bad. We can't do that. We've gone all through the good stuff. Let's move on to some other bad stuff of the OVA.
There is a few other good scenes that we should talk about, but most of it is pretty bad. Let's talk Renne, because Renne comes off, I think, as somebody whose voice actress was told that she needs to be teasing to like hint that there is a mystery, and that's the only thing about the character that the voice actress knows. When she reads her lines talking to Estelle and Tita, she does pull off that she knows more than she's supposed to know, but she sounds so monotonous and robotic. Like, and not even in a Ren way. Ren is supposed to be teasing. Ren is supposed to be like playing with people. This was not really that.
Robotic is very tough in a spoken adaptation because you don't want to bore the listener, bore the viewer. So that's a very tough line to cross. Ren didn't walk it here. She sounded boring. I was bored listening to her. It was bad voice acting. More likely, it was bad voice directing. There's that one. Two, we have a chapter, most of a chapter with Ren and Gran sold in the game. We get to know her, see her with Tita, ice cream, what say you? Here, it's a couple minutes, and we are led to believe that this formed a sisterly almost bond between Estelle and Ren on the basis of this small, short conversation.
It just doesn't work. And that's the main problem with this OVA is because they're trying to compress things that take the game hours to develop into 20-minute time frames, if that. It just everything that should hit you emotionally just doesn't work because of that. There's a later Ren scene that we'll talk about that could be really emotionally gut-wrenching if we had the proper scaffolding, but we don't.
This scene, Ren and Estelle are on the Gloriosus. And then Estelle tries to break Ren's emotional mental armor to get at through the child Ren that lies underneath this persona of the angel of extermination, the angel of slaughter she's built up as a defense mechanism.
And what we do see as well is like some very quick flashbacks to a traumatic event that happened in Ren's past, with some pretty gruesome imagery, one has to say. Which is why I say that if we had enough scaffolding, that scene could have been really effective. But it would have to be in like a 5 or 6 episode anime series and not in a 2 episode anime series.
A series of individual beats with little to no connective tissue. Asking the audience to care about characters you've never met or met only a short amount of time ago can be quite a difficult, tricky business. Take, for example, Tita. We see Tita meet Estelle with the sisterly bond already established when they go to Zeiss. And for the most part, I thought it was good showing us in medias res. They've already formed this connection forged between them.
Yeah.
Tita tackles Estelle. They reunite, talk about it's been cut so long, but then it's ruined when Estelle loses the harmonica almost that Joshua gave her. I'm sorry, that Josh gave her. Walter kicks it almost over the edge, and Estelle is just stupid. She has some stupid comment in response to that. I forget the exact wording, but it's like,
She calls Walter a jerk, basically.
yeah,
That line falls a little bit flat. Yes, I do think that scene is pretty decent. I kind of like the idea of them seeing Walter beforehand, because otherwise he really would come out of nowhere. At the very least, now he's coming out. He's clearly menacing. He's clearly up to no good, kind of powerful. And then when we see him with the gospel later, okay, then the dots are connected. I want to talk about the design of Walter, both the good and the bad in terms of narrative choices. First of all, the good, I really like that the party gets their ass handed to them. This is not a thing where you fight, the party beats the abyssal worms, and then Walter comes in and is about to deliver a blow, but then it stops. Everybody gets obliterated by Walter, really showing how powerful he is. I like that. What I don't like is how he's drawn, because he looks like a wrestler on steroids.
he is very wide, weird proportions on the body. The character design of the actual animation is weird. I'm going to push back a bit on the fight because, yes, seeing in isolation, seeing them all go together, fight and lose is good. But that mostly works. We've already established the competence and skill of the characters in question. If we see them, if we can believe these are powerful fighters, and look what's happening to them, that can be very effective. But here, the only thing we have before this is a brief fight against the Genis Academy mech, which one we don't really see them destroy. Like,
Yeah, it's
Higby's
weird.
still out there.
We do see the fact that it is destroyed. The weird thing is that we see the mech kicking the party's ass. Then Blue Blanc has this whole thing with Klose, and then in the background, Estelle has taken care of the mech, and then comes after Blue Blanc, which like I think that's supposed to establish that these guys are pretty good at fighting. But because we don't actually see them win, we just have to imply that they've won. It doesn't go the full way.
So yeah, I agree. In theory, it's a really good thing to do, and the actual animation, for the most part, the fight scene was done very well. But when it asks us to now consider the party, what your reaction is, these people aren't really good at the jobs.
Something that I do think that this does pretty effectively as well. So Joshua comes in and we see the fight between him and Walter, and it's a pretty good fight scene, and it kind of demonstrates the power differential between the party and Josh, sorry, which doesn't exist as much in the games. Like it's kind of implied in the games, but quickly you become the same level, and then you're all basically on an equal playing field. Here, it's clear that Josh has this training from the organization, and that he's one of the only people who can actually stand toe to toe with these guys. And so I thought that was pretty well done.
And narratively, having Joshua come in, fight, and then leave saying, "Don't follow me,"
Yeah.
if that was in the game, that could have been very well done. because we would see, oh, Joshua isn't gonna be out with the party for much longer. And it's a fake out. We see him angry, more broody. He's self-destructing. He's spiraling downward. Then he leaves.
Right, and we would also see more of Joshua's. I don't even want to say agency, but we there's a lack of struggle in Estelle getting Joshua back. It's basically Estelle chasing Joshua, finding Joshua, convincing Joshua to stay, right? Which like it's very effective in the moment. I love that scene in the beach, right, by Ruan. But at the same time, it could have been really interesting to see Estelle finds Joshua. Joshua reveals like yes, he has this remnant of feeling. That's why he comes in to save her, but then says, "Look, as you've just seen, these guys are too dangerous. Stop following me. I will not save you next time." And then walking away, that would show Joshua's commitment to his own cause, and it would give
Yes.
Estelle another chance for growth by having to then deal with that rejection. And then what does she do with it? Like, that could have been an interesting thing to explore.
I'm going to push back a bit when you say that Estelle found Joshua in the game. I don't think she really did. They, one, either ran into each other, or the way I see it, Joshua found Estelle. Because if she was not on the Gloriosas, Joshua would not have made contact.
That's true. That's
Um,
true. I mean,
yeah.
Joshua does rescue her, but I guess what I'm saying is that once that encounter happens, Estelle like just hugs him from behind, and boom, he's back in the party.
So seeing this setback, I think would have been quite good.
Another good thing that we should touch on is the dream sequence when Luciola puts everybody to sleep. That was I thought that was very effective. Like it does. So the challenge that this OVA has established, or the challenge that it has throughout the whole thing, is to create emotional bonds in a very short period of time. But we do have some kind of connection to Estelle at this point because she's the main character for the whole thing. She goes into this dream thing, and it's a fairly good rendition of Cassius. It's a good rendition of her mother, but then also seeing her recognize her mother, come to the emotional realization. The voice actress does a very good job at showing the depth of emotion there. Then she transforms into a child. That packs some emotional punch. I do think it would have been nice if they had shown like some more of the day-to-day Estelle playing with Cassius scenes. They basically just do the beginning and the end of that dream sequence in this adaptation. But for what's here, it was really good.
So let's be clear here. When we say it was really good, we mean for people who have played FC and SC.
Yeah, yeah. You
I
have
don't
to
think
have the
much.
context of this whole series in order to, or of these two games in order to understand anything in this OVA. That's without question.
If this was your only introduction to Kaseki, I don't think there'd be much that was positive that you would take away from it.
No. Sound design, maybe.
This was not a good adaptation.
No.
What would you adapt? The first two games, just SC, one, both. What would we do? What would you do? What choices would you have to make? What would you include? What would you cut?
So the bare minimum that I would do is you have a episode per each chapter of each game. Perhaps you'd have to have two episodes per chapter in FC, just given how long that they are. You could probably cut away the side content if you just wanted to focus on main plot. That would be the shortest way to adapt it. However, since the side quests, especially in SC, do a very good job at establishing world building, like for example, all the Phantom B quests that you get kind of keep Blue Blanc in the back of your mind, and then he pops up again in the towers, and you're fighting him. That would be a way to lead up to his final encounters later on in the season. But I could easily see like you have your big plot moments based around the main quest, and then in between those you have like more adventure of the day stuff concentrated on a side quest or two that really would then help flesh out Zemuria. I would watch that.
What about characters? Are there any changes to characters? Would we combine any? Would we exclude any of the party members, or would they all have to be in?
They'd all have to be in. I mean, you might say we can get rid of Zen, and I would say fuck you because Zen is cool. I like Zen. They all have to be there. Maybe we could treat Claudia or Chloe or Klose with a little bit more respect because this OVA drops her basically at the same time that the game does in terms of any characterization or growth or screen time or lines. So maybe we could concentrate a bit more on her character as well.
A lot of adaptations, they face the difficult decision of what to cut most times. And there's so much that could be cut from Trails. But what makes these two games? So you're saying is then it's the characters, their interactions, then that they, if you cut them or their facets, it would not be a Trails. It'd be that in name only.
Yeah, I think so. The two defining features for me in Trails for me are the characters and the world. And if you cut that stuff out, which this kind of did, it's not Trails anymore.
But any adaptation should come from a place of respect or at the very least deep engagement and familiarity.
Yeah, and like you look, you can make narrative changes. I'm not asking
Yes.
for a one-to-one adaptation, but I do want to see respect for the series. And like we posted on Twitter the other day that we watched this, right? And the immediate response that we got from our fan base was, "This OVA is a piece of shit because it shits all over the world." And it's hard. Like there are good positive facets to it. There are positive things to say. There are things that I like about it, but it's hard to push back against the claim that this just shits all over what we love about Trails because it kind of does.
Well, it's bad adaptations that do not come from a place of engagement and respect. And Colin, I view that now we should mirror the anime and end suddenly without much resolution, leaving lots of questions still hanging.
All right.
See you next week when we talk about the novels of Trails SC, which would be the last episode on SC before we do our break and switch to predictions and then prologue of the third.
Thanks everybody for listening. Bye bye.